Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1266A, and today's date is April 28th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, The Fed Goes All In to Crash the Economy. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know the central bankers, they have been pushing their agenda for many, many years, actually since 1913, but it has accelerated since 2008, but they've been chugging along since 1971 when we came off the gold standard, and this is where they really pushed their agenda throughout the years. And what we're seeing right now is they have certain goals they want to reach. They want to reach this cashless society. And this makes it better for them because they have full control of your currency then. You can't hide the cash. You can't hide the coins. You can't hide all this stuff because everything's electronic in the bank under the control of the central bank. Now, we can see that there are countries right now moving in this direction. India, Europe would like to do this. The United States would like to do this. And many other countries are going to jump on board if the central bankers get their way. And we can see that South Korea right now, they are actually heading in this direction. And they're already among the least cash-dependent countries in the world. And they started a trial phase-out of coins. And they're trying to get rid of all coins. Now, instead of making change and giving you coins, what they're going to do is they're going to have a prepaid card. So if you get change, it goes onto this prepaid card, and then you use that. And eventually what's going to happen is they'll get rid of the paper money, and everything will be just credit, debit, and however else they're going to do it. But for the interim portion of this going into a cashless society, they're going to be using a prepaid card. And I wouldn't be surprised if other countries follow suit and they do the same exact thing, because we know the central banker's goal is to have a cashless society, to take control of everyone's accounts, and to basically control, track the everyday person. That's the main objective to all of this, because in the end, the central bankers, and this is the Rothschild Bank, this is the Bank of International Settlements, and most of the countries do have central banks today. Some have and I'm talking about the private Western Central Bank. Let's not be confused here. Others have central banks where the people's government control it. Like in Russia, it was a private Western Central Bank where the Rothschilds did control it. Putin came in and actually took control of that central bank, and he calls the shots in Russia. We can see Duterte, he's getting ready to get rid of the central bank there that's run by the Rothschild. We see Hungary, the same thing. They've gotten rid of their central bank that's run by the Rothschild. Iceland has taken control and actually jailed bankers for their complete mess in 2008. And most of the countries today, yes, they do have a private Western Central Bank run by the Rothschild Bank. And this is something that we need to break apart. This is something that we need to get rid of here in the United States. And this is what we need to focus on, because the central bank, this is the major problem of all our problems when it comes down to what is happening with the monetary system all the way through to war. Now, here in the United States, we see that this central banking system, it is completely deteriorating, it's falling apart, it's accelerating, and every time we report on this, we see things rapidly getting worse and worse and worse. But we can see that they're continually trying to make it seem like everything, well, it's still chugging along, and they come out with their consumer confidence models, and they say everything is fine. And what's very interesting is that every time they come out with consumer confidence, they tell you that the consumers are feeling good, everything looks great. But when you really look at what's going on, you see real wage growth. Well, that has declined over the years. People are making less now. People are spending less now. Stores are closing. People are losing their part-time and full-time jobs. GDP is in the dumper. And how can anyone say that consumer confidence is holding steady or moving up at this point? It's absolutely ridiculous when you come to think about it. It doesn't even make sense, especially when you see corporate defaults, when we see credit card defaults on the rise, more people putting expenses on credit cards because they just don't have the cash, because they don't have the jobs. So when we look at this, we can see that what they're putting out there makes no sense whatsoever. And the stock market keeps going higher and higher and higher. And we can tell that this is all completely manipulated to keep us in this illusion. And we've been kept in this illusion for a very long time. And this illusion, it is dying right now. And we understand that 70% of GDP is made up of U.S. consumer spending. And we are continually seeing spending decline over time. It's not moving up. It's not getting better. It's actually declining. And U.S. consumer spending is at 0.23% annualized. This was the worst print going back to 2009. And according to BEA's gold-seeked models, even as retail sales have tumbled, as Obamacare continued to drain disposable income, people did spend their funds on something, and that was recreational vehicles. Now, they spent less on cars, less on clothing, less on housing, and they spent more on recreational goods and vehicles, which falls into the category of weapons, RVs, camping equipment. And you start to wonder, are they doing this because they understand what is going on? They understand that they're going to need to be on the move, that they're going to need a weapon, they're going to need supplies when things start to really fall apart. And the last time spending on recreational vehicles and goods went up like this was last year at this time. And last year, they knew that the economy really wasn't doing well. We were being lied to. Jobs weren't coming back. We were continually losing jobs, and people were preparing for the worst. Today, with Trump in the presidency, people are still feeling the same way, where nothing has improved, jobs aren't coming back, and we're headed towards a huge financial crisis. Now, the Atlanta Fed was continually putting out their estimates over time, and they went from all the way from 3% all the way down to 2.2% or so. And the final numbers came in, and most likely these will be revised lower. The final GDP number came in around 0.7%, down from 2.1 in the last quarter, and of course below the expected 1%, which they thought they were going to get. Now remember, this is the manipulated number that the government is putting out there. And if you look at shadow stats or any other calculation besides the government's calculation, you can see that the GDP numbers are in the negative range. They're not in the positive range. This is the collapse of the system. Now, the Fed does believe that things are going to improve throughout this year. And they think that things are going to get better. And they think that we're going to hit the target of a great GDP number of maybe 2.8% or so, which is hard to believe because what is going to change in the next quarter? Are we all of a sudden going to see people spend like crazy? Retail stores are going to start to open up instead of close down? Because remember, 70% of GDP is U.S. consumer spending. So how is this going to change in the second quarter, in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter? Because as we are seeing right now, as healthcare premiums go up, this is included in the spending. More and more individuals are taking the tax penalty instead of purchasing insurance. So that plus people not actually spending in retail, we're going to see these numbers drop even further. So what the Fed is telling us doesn't really make that much sense at all. Now we can see that the government, well, they are on the precipice of shutting down. But don't worry, Congress figured out a way to keep the government open. And we talked about the government shutdown yesterday. It really means absolutely nothing. It's something they use to scare the American people into doing what they want. So Congress decided to pass this stopgap spending bill for 7 days, and it goes to the president's desk, and most likely he will sign it. And we can see that we're still going to come up with the same exact problem where they're going to have to debate about keeping the government open. And if it does shut down, it'll probably just be shut down for a little while. We'll have to see if Trump uses the same tactics as Obama to prove his point, where he had the federal employees bring out those gates, put them in front of monuments, shut things down to make it look really good, while everyone kept their limousines, their private jets, and everything else, their restaurant, the golf course, and everything else they have. And of course, that was done on purpose to make everyone see that this is what happens when the government shuts down. And of course, this was a dog and pony show, and really, when the government shuts down, many people don't even notice it. It's shut down many, many times in the past, which we discussed yesterday. Now, the Fed is looking at this entire economy, and they have just signaled that they are not going to stop raising interest rates. They don't care if GDP is at 0.7%, 0.2%, negative 0.5%. It makes no difference because their models show that the economy is going to improve. This is just temporary, and we are going to raise rates rapidly throughout this year. And this is coming from the Federal Reserve, and they're saying that they expect in the second quarter, and they might get it, they expect 2.8%. Now, they'll probably get this if they manipulate the numbers, but this is what they're expecting. And it's even going to get better as we go throughout this year. And this is why we can raise interest rates. What they're really doing right now, and go back to 2008, go back before that when they started to raise interest rates, where they told you that everything was fine, even though the subprime securities, they were complete garbage, even though they were rated AAA. And they started to raise interest rates saying, see, the economy's fine, everything's back on track, we have the subprime securities, the AAA, people are buying houses, this is why we can raise rates right now. Even when things were falling apart, they told you that everything was contained, that this is going to turn out okay for everyone. We're not even forecasting any type of recession. This is what they're doing right now. They know this economy is done. And what they're doing is they're going all in, and they're pushing the agenda to shut the system down. Now, I said this in the past. This is a race on who's going to crash the economy and who is going to tell the story of who is to blame for this. Because Trump's mission right now, which I do believe, is to get rid of the Federal Reserve. What other reason would he hang up Andrew Jackson in the White House? Because Andrew Jackson campaigned on getting rid of the central banking system, which he did. And yes, they tried to assassinate him, which failed. And we can see right now that as we move forward throughout this year, the Fed is going to accelerate their plans to crash the system. Trump most likely is going to do the same. And this is a race. Now, there is no question that this system is going to come down. It's not going to improve. And as we've been tracking it and we've been looking at everything that's been going on, the only thing that has kind of improved, and it looks like it's improved, is the stock market moving up. But when we talk about retail and we talk about everything else, these are all bubbles. Housing, it's a bubble. Student loan, it's a bubble. Autos, it's a bubble. Stock market, it's a bubble. Bond, it's a bubble. And the race is on to blow these bubbles up as fast as they possibly can so they can pop. And when they do pop, It's going to be a nightmare situation, no matter who brings the economy down. Because when the economy comes down, it doesn't matter if it's the central bank or if it's Trump, because the situation is exactly the same. Everyone is going to most likely lose their job, lose their life savings, lose their pension. Food is going to be hard to get. Currency is going to be worthless. The only difference there's going to be between the central bank and Trump bringing down the system is how it's brought back up, how we transition into a new system. And is it going to be a benefit to the people? So if you have not prepared, I would suggest preparing now, because the clock is ticking down. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.